Okay, hello. So today, the lesson, I wanted to show you some ways that you can use tense to talk about food and health, or using tense to talk about food and health. So, what tenses could we use? Right? We talked about last time that in the last lesson that sometimes it's better to use a certain verb tense to talk about something. And this is the same with talking about food and health. You can use different kinds of tenses to talk about things. So, and it changes like what you mean, how people, understand you. So, we can use simple past tense to talk about food and health, right? How would you use this? So, when we talk about food and health, usually we talk about things that we learn because it's about science, right? Um, if you're not talking about your opinion, your feelings, you're talking about things that are shown by science or something that is what we say proven, right? It's not based on what you feel or another person feels. It's based on what something actually is or does. So, for example, um, when you're talking to somebody about health and food and things like that, you would say, I read a study about this. Um, so instead of saying read, like simple present, we would say read. I read a study about this because we're making it past tense. Because what we're saying is, oh, I learned something in the past about this, so I can talk about it now, right? I read a study about this. Um, Again, using the simple past tense, I learned that you can't eat a lot of sugar. Um, or could say, I learned that eating a lot of sugar is bad for you. So you can start the sentence with, I learned, I read, I think, right? But something else can happen that's a little bit weird when we talk about food and health, right? When we're talking about things that we learned about in the past, right? But something that's important to now. So you can use the simple past with present tense together in the same sentence. So you're probably like, well, I thought you could only use one at a time. No, in English, which is why it's so confusing, you can use different verb tenses in the same sentence and it will make, you know, it it changes, right? So this sentence, for example, I watched the news and it said that eating too much sugar is bad. Okay, so let's talk about this and kind of break it down. So, we have I watched. This is the beginning of the sentence and this is what tells us what time we are saying all of this happened. When you're saying I watched, or if you said he watched, or my mom watched, whoever watched it, it's in the past because we put an ed at the end, right? This verb watch means to like look at, right? We made it past tense. I watched the news, right? And it said. Instead of saying say, we use said because it's past. Now, when we use this sentence, I watched the news and it said, we would think, okay, so all of this is in the past tense. So I need to keep using the past tense with all the other verbs. But that's not true because in English, when you're talking about something, or when you're talking about something that you saw, or what we say observed, which means that you saw it, you watched it happen. Um, when that happens, um, we say, we tell people, I watched, I saw, to let people know it happened in the past. But When we're talking about what actually happened, we use the present tense or present continuous or other kinds of present tense ways to talk about it, because you'll see that we say eating and is instead of was, right? So the first bit is I watched. That's past. That said, that's past as well. And then when we start talking about the thing that we saw or the thing that we watched, then we can use present tense, right? Present continuous in this case because we use ing. It said. So it's kind of like the beginning of the sentence. I watched the news and it said. It's all past tense, simple past, because it's setting up, right? It's setting up to let people know this happened in the past. But then when we talk about what happened, we can use the present tense. It said, and this is what they said, eating too much sugar is bad. And then you'll see they use is bad instead of was bad. Because what we're saying, what the news said, eating too much sugar is bad, the reason we keep it present tense or present continuous is because what it's saying is still true. It's continuous. It's still true to the present. So that's why we're able to use the present tense, because we use the past tense to set up, to let people know, okay, what I'm talking about happened in the past. And then this is what they said. And what they said is something that means that it is continuous. It is something that is true and will keep being true, right? And that's why we can combine the simple past and things like the present tense, present continuous, present progressive, or simple present tense, right? So it's kind of confusing, but now you'll know why you in when you're speaking English, you need to really be aware of what time am I talking about, right? I'm talking about something that happened in the past to me, but what I'm telling them about is something that will continue to be correct or will continue to be what it says. So that's why I would use present tense this way. All right, the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is some phrases you can use. So when we use things like I feel, like a I feel phrase, like I feel tired when my children fight with me. I feel I feel tired after work. I feel like my manager doesn't like me. An I feel phrase, group of words that you put together, feel is an emotion, right? It's something that only you can feel. It's something only you can do. It's an I feel. So it's about you and your emotions, right? And everybody feels things different, right? Differently. So when we use I feel statements, when we are talking about our opinion, things that we believe, um, we usually use I feel, right? I feel really gross when I have a lot of sugar, right? I feel like Americans put too much sugar in their food, right? It's based on your emotion, right? But when you use the phrase I think, it's talking about your brain and it's talking about how you see, touch, how you experience things, but it's also based on like things like science or things that you read, things that you learn, right? So you can use I think when you're saying your opinion, like I could say to my sister, I think you wear too much makeup, or I think you do not wear enough makeup, right? So that's still my opinion, but we can use I think when we talk about science and things that we learn, because think is about information. It's not about your emotions. It's not about feelings. It's about information, things that you can read, things that you can see and touch and like taste. You put all of those together and it makes information. Um, and so that's why we use I think phrases when we talk about things like science instead of I feel. So I will show you why these two sentences are different just because we use I feel or I think. So if I said, I feel better when I don't eat a lot of sugar, what you're saying to somebody when you say, I feel better when I don't eat a lot of sugar, is you're saying, this is my personal, this is about me, this is my experience, this is what I went through when I ate a lot of sugar. I do, I feel good when I do not eat a lot of sugar. But if you say, I think, now we have to change the sentence a bit. I think it is better to not eat a lot of sugar. So when you tell somebody I feel, it's kind of more polite and it's not as confrontational, meaning it's not something that people can get upset with you about or argue with you about because you're using I feel. But when you say I think, all of a sudden, when you say I think, it means you're talking about information that somebody can argue with you about. I think it is better to not eat a lot of sugar. You say that because of maybe how you feel when you eat a lot of sugar, but also because maybe you read a study, right? Something that scientists did to find out that eating a lot of sugar is bad. Maybe it's from you are studying nutrition, right? And that told you, you had a book that told you that. So that's when it becomes I think instead of I feel. So just as you talk, to people or as you listen to people, um, try and pay attention to when people use I feel or when people say I think.